Nobody told me this was going to be recorded.
It's hot in here. I know. Exactly.
So it's just a chat.
Yeah, it's just a chat. They're always just chats.
Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly.
Welcome back to the DCL podcast, your podcast to help you and your family cruise a little smarter. And I'd like to welcome back to the show. It's early my time, but it's mid-morning her time. How are you doing today, Christy?
I am well. It's a good thing the people, though, listening don't actually get to see me because it looks like it's early morning if you look at my face.
With that being said, I'm not feeling that witty this morning. We're just going to jump right into today's show, which I'm super excited to talk about. One of our favorite guests coming back, and she threw me a curveball on this one to use a little sports reference because I did not see this trip coming. But welcome back to the show all the way down in California. How you doing this morning, Lauren?
Great. I'm doing good.
You guys are not fans of the 3-day cruises, so I knew that it was not going to be the Wonder out of San Diego or the Dream out of Port Canaveral, but you guys threw me a curveball with this one. Where did you guys decide to go this time?
Well, we've cruised Alaska, we've cruised 2 transatlantics. Why not cruise halfway across the Pacific to Hawaii?
When did you guys book this? So there was a first one that canceled, and then they brought it back again. When did you guys book this trip?
We actually originally back a million years ago, it seems, looked at that first one, but we had some other trips, mainly one that was to Iceland that conflicted. We actually ended up booking this just when opening day opened for this cruise. So, 500 days before it.
Wow, that's very well planned.
And I mean, I don't want to talk about pricing too much. I mean, Disney cruises are just generally expensive, but I don't think Hawaii was as expensive as I thought it would be. What was your thoughts?
No, I thought it was within the range of what I expected. I know their previous Hawaii cruises have all sold out and been, that jumps the price up. And so it was in the range of what we thought it would be, honestly.
Okay. And had you been to Hawaii before?
Nope, never been to Hawaii, never wanted to go to Hawaii, didn't think we'd like Hawaii, and figured if we ever went to Hawaii, it would only be with Disney Cruise Line. We're not beach people. And we thought, well, if we do it with Disney Cruise Line, at least we can hop, see the islands, not have to sit on the beach for a week, which didn't sound super fun for us. It's just kind of not how we travel. And so Disney Cruise Line was a great fit for us to be able to go see Hawaii.
And who all went on this trip?
So it's just me and my travel partner in crime, my husband, Jason.
I am not one of those people that likes to sit out on the beach all day either, as far as that goes. So I totally understand that part of Hawaii. But Hawaii does have a lot of history. They've got some great food over there and a lot of different things to do if you don't want to sit on the beach. We'll jump into a bunch of those. But overall, were you surprised and happy about this Hawaii vacation?
Yeah, I think this sort of seems to be our MO. We think, we'll go there because Disney's going there. And then I start doing some research and pulling up, guidebooks and go, oh, wow, this looks cool. Ooh, we'd like to do this. And that's kind of how Hawaii ended up for us. I still don't think we would have been great for us just to go to one island and hang around and sit for a week. But we had a ton of fun in Hawaii and there was a ton of stuff to do. And there was stuff we didn't have time to do or weren't in the right place on the island to do. And so I definitely think it's in our sights as somewhere we might want to go back to someday.
Unfortunately, it's not going to be next year with Disney because they're not going next year. So hopefully in 2 years, they'll do that.
This cruise actually departed from Vancouver. So the Hawaii sailings for this season either left from Hawaii to go to Vancouver or went from Vancouver to Hawaii. Tell us about your Vancouver stay.
We did a quick stint from our home airport up to Seattle, mostly so I could stop and get some cheese curds from Beecher's Cheese Shop. I know it's a Steve favorite. It's my favorite. Anytime I'm in Seattle, I am picking up a tub of those cheese curds. And then we connected on a quick little flight over to Vancouver. We came in mid-afternoon, the day before our cruise, with all of the checking in and all of the stuff that goes along. We like to come in the night before if we can, so we're not stressing going through all the airport. And going into, Vancouver is obviously an international port, so you do have to go through all of that type of stuff if you're coming from the US. And so we got to Vancouver, went through all the check-in stuff pretty easy, took a cab to our hotel, and we decided to stay at the Pan Pacific this time, which was a gorgeous hotel. Absolutely loved it. We had stayed at the Fairmont Waterfront when we did Alaska, our first cruise quite a few years ago. And so we switched into the Pan Pacific. Loved it, would absolutely stay again. They had the best fitness center, which is always like a top priority for us. It was a gorgeous hotel, great restaurants. We spent a couple hours walking around Stanley Park and then, hung out in our room, and it was time for bed to wake up first thing in the morning to see that ship.
So the Pan Pacific, that's right next to BC Place, right? Where the Wonder docks?
It is. It's basically over it. So we had gotten upgraded, complimentary upgrade to a harbor view. And so we were directly over the Wonder when she parked in the morning. It was amazing. 6:30 a.m., curtains wide open, staring at the ship I haven't seen in years and years and years. It was so much fun to watch it kind of pull in.
West Coast is the best coast. San Diego, you can do that, and up in Vancouver as well. Just get up in the morning and see that ship out there. And being at the Pan Pacific too, at Stanley Park, just a beautiful park you can walk to. If you want to jump over to Victoria, they've got seaplanes that can take you over there. It's just a great location. A little bit probably more expensive than other hotels, but man, if you're splurging on a vacation, I think that's like the perfect place to go in Vancouver.
Quick question before we leave the Vancouver hotel, the Pan Pacific, you can just, if you're not Steve and not walking 45 minutes from the airport to the port, can you still, the hotel's above the ship. You just like go down and around and you're at the port. Like how does that work?
So one of the things we did was ask them to take our luggage, which was amazing. They will, take your luggage for, you tip, a few bucks. It's not a lot. And it was great because we handed our luggage to some person at our room and I didn't see it again until it was parked in front of my stateroom, which, mildly terrifying, hoping that they actually take your bags to the ship. But at the same time, I did not have to do any of the hauling. And then you take a magical little elevator down, or some stairs, I guess, directly into the cruise port, and you start your processing journey right there. It was so simple and so quick. And of course, right at the bottom of the Pan Pacific is also the closest Starbucks, which was a top bonus for us first thing in the morning.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
So embarkation, we won't delay it too much, but it sounded like you guys had a little bit of problems. Of course, you have to go through customs to go into the US there. So it's like an extra step that what you normally don't do at most ports. How did that kind of go?
I think we've done, both of our cruises have been out of Vancouver on their first Disney sailing of the season. And both times, all of the staff is brand new. They're still learning how to point people, where to point people. And we actually knew where to go in some sense more than some of the staff who were pointing us in wrong directions. And I was going, I don't think that's where we're supposed to go right now. And so, it's just a pack your patience moment. Obviously, if you're later in the season, they've got it down. But we followed all the arrows and went through all the process. And we were on the ship relatively quickly as far as it could go. It was pretty smooth overall.
And Christy, we're kind of hearing the same thing over in Europe right now, that when the Magic set sail out of Barcelona, it was pack your patience, as you said here, Lauren, on the outline, as far as people getting on over the Magic too. So those first sailings in the ports where people are new and kind of getting spun up, kind of hearing the same thing over there, right?
Yep.
Well, so you guys have 5 days at sea before you even get to Hawaii. You're back on the Wonder now it had been a while since you guys had been on it. What was it like getting back on the Disney Wonder?
So it felt like home. It felt like exactly, where we belonged. We've only ever sailed on the Disney Magic and the Disney Wonder, and they're sister ships and they mirror each other really closely. And so when we get on, we know where everything is. We know where all the big stuff is. The names might have changed, but the restaurant's the same place. The clubs are in the same place. The pools are in the same place. And so we were just off and running. Like, we got on the ship, we booked it to Cabanas, grabbed some quick lunch, booked it to the gym. I know nobody goes to the gym on embarkation day, but that's why we go to the gym on embarkation day. It's super quiet. It's great. Like, we get a quick workout in before our room's ready. We don't have anything else to do during that period. And then the room's ready. We're unpacking. We're doing all the fun stuff. They had sail away and all the crazy things. We're checking out. We had never been on the Wonder since Tiana's had been put in the French Quarter Lounge. So we stopped in there, took some pictures, grabbed a drink, all the great stuff you do on embarkation day. It was so great to step back on a Disney ship after so many months of being away. And I kind of forgot how great it was. Like in your head, you're like, oh yeah, it's wonderful. But man, once you're on there, it was just like joy, just pure joy to be back. And know that we had 5 sea days to relax and enjoy everything the ship had to offer with no pressure to feel like if we stayed on the ship, we were missing a port. And if we were in a port, we were missing ship time. We got the best of both with this itinerary.
I'm trying to wrap my head around 5 days at sea because I've never had, that usually like with our European stuff and like the ones you've done over there, it's like bam, 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 port after port after port. Christy, you kind of had that experience being on the ship as long, going through the Panama Canal. How do you kind of like schedule what you're going to do? Was it just like, well, did you have any plans or was it just like, we'll just wing it for those 5 days?
No, honestly, that was the part of being on the ship we love the most is you've heard us talk about our vacations. We're usually pretty planned. We've got all these adventures. And when we get on these sea days, there's no plans or very few plans. We look through the Navigator app. We heart a bunch of stuff that looks cool. And then we just hang out. If it seems more fun to walk around deck 4 for an hour and a half, that's what we're doing. Like, oh, well, that animation class passed us. We'll do another one later. Some of that also comes, I think, because this is our 4th cruise. And I remember on my first cruise, I felt like I had to do all of it. I had to pack in the towel animal folding and I had to pack in all the lectures. And now I'm like, hey, man, I've folded some towels. This looks more fun right now. And I'm just going to chill out on deck 9 with a bowl full of ice cream and some French fries and not worry about it. And we absolutely love those sea days because it allows us to really decompress and relax and do whatever we want to do. And if one of us wants to do something and the other doesn't, it's great. It's an easy way to do that. On a land vacation, that's not as easy to do, to split up and do different things. But if Jason wants to go and take an animation class and I want to go and listen to a lecture on the history of Hawaii, we can totally do that and meet back up in an hour at the ice cream. That's kind of our like spot because I'm generally always filling up on ice cream. It's just a really easy way to vacation. We honestly, that's part of why we love Disney Cruise Line so much and part of why we do these long cruises with sea days is because it gives us a chance to just relax and hang out and not have to plan and not have to worry about a schedule and not be on a time clock. It's just whatever sounds good in the moment.
What are some of the things? So you sort of loosely mentioned them, but since we are talking about activities, what are some of the activities that were the most memorable from this cruise during those sea days and just breaks and when you weren't in port?
One of the really cool things that we've noticed, we do these longer cruises generally, is that they add extra stuff. And so for this cruise, they pulled the staff from Aulani and their activity staff, and they had them on board, and they were doing basically every class that's ever been offered at Aulani ever was offered on the ship. So you could do lei making and hula dancing and ukulele. And they had, is it Uncle Eric, the storyteller, who did stories every day. And I went to a bunch of those and they were all the different stories. So he never repeated. So it was a great thing to do. So we loved doing all the Hawaii, like some of the Hawaii stuff. Honestly, I was not at hula dancing. It's not really my thing. But like we made leis and, just kind of enjoyed some of the stuff that we would do if we were spending a bunch of time in Hawaii. We kind of treated it like that. We love trivia. We enjoy a good Disney trivia. And so we usually pick up a couple trivias. I still don't have a medal. I'm a little salty because there is 2 of us. Okay. And we got 39 out of 45 on Ultimate Disney Trivia. And we got beat because there was a group of 6 people. I did that with 2.
You should definitely get a consolation at least, right?
But, honestly, we really don't care about the medal. It's just fun for us to go and see if we can answer the questions and have a good time and, and see what questions they're having. We like the Disney music trivia. We get to see, oh man, do we know the words? What song is this? Do you remember who this is? What movie is this from? I don't know. I know it, but I don't know it type of thing. I go to some of the history lectures that seem to be offered on board because we're always doing these unique sailings. We like to do character spotting occasionally. I got to be honest, I was a little frustrated with the app this time because it only said character. And I don't really feel like running around and seeing what character it is and checking. And I know I could go ask the staff, but I just want to look in the app and be like, oh, hey, Donald's up a couple decks. You want to go run and get a picture? We're not stressing over it. We love to walk around deck 4 and just, check out the sea. We actually ran into Spider-Man, which is one of my favorite moments from this cruise on those sea days. Spider-Man was sitting on a deck chair with a bunch of other people that were sitting on deck chairs and had like, I don't know, it seemed like a conversation forever. And it was like solid Spider-Man conversation. It was just so fun. That's one of the things we love about Disney is we're walking around deck 4, getting some exercise in, checking out the sea, and Spider-Man sitting there on the deck, like just chatting it up with everybody. This wasn't a lineup. This wasn't a like get pictures. He was just cruising and hanging out like the rest of us. And so one of the really, I don't know, for us, it seems kind of silly, but things we actually love about cruising on those sea days is we can go back to our room whenever we want. We need 20 minutes to like chill out and hang out, just be in a quiet space. It's really easy on the ship. You run back, you go to your room, you take 30 minutes and you go back out and have some fun. Again, that's harder to do on a land vacation. You can't pop back to your hotel. You forgot a jacket. It's a little cooler. This cruise was not warm during the first 4 days. It really wasn't. It was a very cold weather cruise. It was colder than our Alaska cruise. And it was like our Northern Route transatlantic cruise, cold weather. And so, we forgot a jacket. Run back, grab your jacket. No big deal. And so we did some of the tastings. They offered a coffee tasting. We know these aren't like high class pay for tastings, but they're fun. And the stories from the cast members are great. And so we're always doing those types of things. We don't have kids, so we can go to some of the late night adult shows if we can keep our eyes open long enough. And that kind of stuff is just fun. Who cares on 5 sea days if you go to bed at midnight? There's no rush to get up the next morning.
I've never heard of coffee tasting before. So I love the fact that Hawaii is very known for their coffee and everything like that. I'm sure that was maybe part of it, I'm guessing, as to why they maybe added that. But I love the fact that they added so many extras to kind of get you excited and tell you the history and the culture of the Hawaiian Islands. And so good on Disney for doing that and getting you guys ready before you get to the islands themselves. What was the seas like? Was it choppy? Just out of curiosity coming across.
It was not the smoothest seas I've ever been on. It was not the worst seas I've ever been on. I've traveled around a hurricane on a transatlantic. It was not that bad. It was a little choppy. It was windy. It was really windy. And I think a lot of the choppiness came from how windy it was, not so much like the waves weren't huge. It was just a lot of wind moving everything around. And it was cold. It was cold, like 50 degrees cold.
So not lounge around the pool deck warm.
No, I have never seen the pool deck that empty for that many days. No one was in those pools for the first 4 days. And believe it or not, for us, that was a selling point of the cruise is we knew it wasn't going to be super warm. We are not warm weather cruisers. We are not interested in sitting around the pool and sweating. We like a comfortable temperature cruise. And this offered that, which was great for us. I'm sure there were some people who were disappointed, but we knew going in it wasn't going to be super toasty. If you've ever cruised Alaska, the part of the Pacific is not particularly warm. So we knew what we were getting into. I'm not sure everyone on our ship did, though. There was a lot of people buying a lot of Disney sweatshirts from the stores.
Yeah, you think Hawaii, and then the next thing you know, it's a little bit cool going over there. So before we touch on the stateroom, because I got a question about that, you guys had a couple different things happen. You had a emergency pickup at sea, and then you also ran into a lifeboat. Can you talk about those real quick?
A couple days into our cruise, we come on, the captain comes on, and says, hey, we're going to divert this cruise. We have a medical emergency. We've got to go back to land. Now, this is not a cruise that's close to land. And we're all going, well, that's going to be interesting. We are nowhere near land at this point. But they worked it out with all the authorities, and it ended up being a helicopter emergency pickup in the middle of the night at sea, which was kind of crazy that they could just pull kind of amazing and great that they could do this to, help in a medical emergency, that they lowered a helicopter basket down onto the ship, picked somebody up and went back to land. And then the next day, Jason and I are in the gym working out, and on the Disney Wonder and the Disney Magic, the gym is front facing, panoramic windows, and we're right above the deck 8, so the bridge. And so we basically have almost the same view as the captain. And I'm, doing my workout, and I see another person in the gym start pointing like way out into the sea. And I'm going, oh, maybe there's a dolphin or a whale. I want to go look, right? So I go over to the window and I'm like, well, that's not a dolphin or a whale. And Jason says this is the reason he now knows that there are ghost stories from all the sea captains of old, because we're looking out there going, well, what is this thing? And as we get closer, It kind of looks like an orange Nautilus from Disney Nautilus ride. Like, we're like, well, why is this out? I mean, we are like days away from land. Why is this out in the middle of nowhere? There is no ships. There's nothing where we're at. The Disney Magic blows its horn, and not the fun, magical, musical horn, like the serious horn, and is honking. And we start circling this thing, and we circle it, and we slow down, and they're looking at it. And after a while, we just go back to course, and we're like, well, that was strange. And we heard from some crew later that Disney contacted the authorities and said, hey, there is a covered lifeboat out in the middle of the ocean. What would you like us to do? There's no response. And they go, oh, yeah, that thing's been out there. We've been looking for it. We haven't been able to find it. We're so glad you guys found it because we've been looking for 8 years.
Come on.
Wow.
And Jason's like, yeah, this is where the ghost stories come from. This thing's been floating around the Pacific for 8 years. How many other people have run into this going, well, there's that, lifeboat ship out there captaining itself in the middle of the smoke and the haze. I mean, we were so far away from land. Yeah, this thing's been missing for 8 years.
That's amazing. As a side note, a friend of mine did the life flight, not the helicopter, because that was the Coast Guard. But when they dropped the person off at Astoria, a friend of mine flew the life flight to take him to Portland that I used to fly with. So it's kind of small world sometimes, and things that That's it.
Well, thanks for that lovely little diversion.
A little bit of nothing there.
You know what we didn't talk about, Lauren? What kind of cabin did you pick for this cruise? So obviously there was a ton of sea days, clearly not very warm in the beginning, but you are going to be going around the Hawaiian Islands. So what did you ultimately choose?
We didn't choose as much as it chose us. So when we went to book this cruise, there was not a lot of options left. The prices for the verandas were a little steep, and they were pretty much sold out by the time we were able to book anyway. Our cruise pick for this one was an ocean view because it was only slightly more than an inside, but we had to get a GTY, a guarantee where Disney picks our room, we pick our category. And that worked for us. First time we've done that. We actually really liked the ocean view. We ended up on deck 2 midship. I would totally book a room there again. Really liked the room. I think if the price was right for ocean view, I would book that again. No problem. For us, it's usually more about what the price is and what fits into what we're willing to pay to get on the ship and what we're doing. If we're in a really port intense, heavy cruise, an inside room is just fine for us. We're not spending a ton of time in our room anyway. And if we're going to all these ports, we're perfectly fine in an inside room. The ocean view was nice. We got to see a little bit of the scenery as we pulled in and out of port every day, got some extra light in the room. I think the veranda would have been a total loss for us on this cruise because the weather was kind of awful for the first part. I wasn't even out on deck for the first 2 days. I wouldn't have been out in the veranda at all. And then by the time we were in Hawaii, we were hanging out in the ports and wouldn't have been sitting on the veranda that much anyway. And if we wanted to, I've always said it, if we want to go out on deck, we can go to deck 4, we can go to deck 9, we can go to deck 10 and get as much sea air as we want to. So for us, it's more about the price. If the veranda's priced right, I'm totally booking it. I love that extra space. We've had those on the transatlantic, but at least now I've done all 3 of the main categories. And I think for people, whatever you can afford to book is perfectly fine to book.
I'm curious, as this cruise wasn't sold out. I believe your notes say that, and just anybody who was watching this cruise watched. So it was in the beginning when you booked it. Did the prices ever seem to drop below that opening day booking?
Not really. Okay. Not really. It got pretty close to what we paid. It was, and at that point it was Disney's, their guaranteed rate. I never can understand the difference between their guarantee and their guarantee. I mean, I know the difference, but like the names are practically identical, but it got to the point where it's the one where you got to pay in full and you don't get to pick any restricted. Yeah. You don't get to pick anything. And they offered that, and that got pretty close to what we paid, but that was like less than a month before the cruise when they opened those up. Like It was basically still sold out until less than a month before the cruise when they ended up opening up back some rooms. Because, you're curious.
Yeah.
And the prices never got really any cheaper than opening day. So I think if this is a cruise they do again and you want to book it and you want to go, just book it opening day and be done with it, because it's not going to get any better.
That is really great to know, because I hadn't analyzed it much this past year, but we know that there are many cruises that have had that they've been trying to fill, right? And so I wondered, like, are for some of these cruises that may have looked a little higher to begin with, did they come down? And I guess it's good that Disney's not reducing them over that opening day, which reminds us that if there is a cruise you want, book it opening day still, whatever your opening day is.
Well, before we get to Hawaii and what you guys got to do on all the different islands, let's talk about food just really quick. You got 10 days on the Wonder, all the different dining rooms. First of all, what did you think of Tiana's? Did you like the French Quarter Lounge, taking pictures? The French Quarter Lounge became our favorite the last 2 cruises for some reason.
Did you buy beignets ever in the French Quarter Lounge? These are our questions.
We did not buy beignets. We did have the ones in Tiana's. We did buy some of their specialty non-alcoholic drinks, which were pretty awesome. It was like, I don't remember, a cotton candy something and a root beer something. They're actually really pretty good. We did like French Quarter. I think it was a way better use of the space than that empty space it kind of was before. I actually wanted to go hang out there. You know, as much as it was great that they used it for other things, I love that at least on this cruise, it was not a space for trivia and other events. It was great that it was just a lounge. As somebody who went to a lot of trivia in that space, it was miserable. You were always crammed in there. There was always people walking by. It was loud. It was always hard to hear what was going on. I never loved going to an event in there. And so by them changing it just into a lounge, I was perfectly happy to go to an event wherever else they stuck it. So we really liked that space.
Did they have like New Orleans jazz type music in that lounge the whole time?
They did, at least in the evenings, right? You know, I didn't spend a lot of time during the day there, honestly, but every evening they had like this one New Orleans jazz band that was there every night. It was a dad and son duo, and they were a ton of fun, and they were playing music, and we would go and sit down in there. One of my favorite memories of being in that lounge is it was one of the first nights of the cruise, and we're sitting in there relaxing, enjoying it. And Pluto stops by, just walking by, stops by and decides to have a dance party in that little center area. And then Goofy walks by and decides to have a dance battle with Pluto. And it was, I mean, this was not planned. You could tell by the musician's face. This was like, they just went with it. It was so much fun. It was one of those Disney cruise moments that I am not getting elsewhere in a park or another cruise line. It was so fun to watch these guys battle it out. And then they pulled a bunch of the audience out to have, I mean, this dance party probably went on over 5 minutes. This was not a quick little jaunt, and it was so much fun to watch. We had a blast just enjoying that space. So yeah, they always had music going on in there. They always had some kind of, you know, jazz type music playing. Even if you just sat down during the day, it seemed like there was, I don't know, maybe a sound system that was playing something quietly sometimes just in the background too.
What did you think of Tiana's place? And did you have any other memorable meals along the cruise?
Yeah, I think Tiana's place was fine. I know you guys absolutely love it. I am team Rapunzel's Royal Table. I think out of the two, I like that one better. Tiana's was fine. It was cute. I thought the music was great, although I could only see like half the musicians because I had a giant pole in my face. Everybody complains about that. I get it. It wasn't originally designed to fit the show. It was fine. But I didn't feel like, and maybe there's more show that I didn't see, you know, things have changed and they've redone stuff. But basically, Tiana came out and introduced the musicians on the show nights, and that was sort of the show. I think the alligator came out and did a little parade, and that was the extent of the show other than the music. So I didn't feel like it was much of a show as much as it was music, which was great. And no complaints from me for the music. But Rapunzel's Royal Table, especially on these longer cruises, has like an extra show they do. And it's a blast. And it's so much fun. And I was kind of like, oh, we're not getting anything like that in this one. Because I kept waiting. Like, oh, we're in night 2 that we're in Tiana's. Here, it's coming. Oh, no, didn't come. Oh, night 3. Oh, still no show. Okay, so this is it. This is the pace I'm coming to. So it was great for what it was. I think I was expecting more Rapunzel's Royal Table, and it wasn't that. So for me, there was a little bit of disappointment there, but that was more my expectations versus the show being bad.
You know what's sort of weird about that is that those musicians, I saw them around the ship quite a bit on the last 2 sailings we did. And other than performing in Tiana's place. I didn't really see him perform any place else. So it's kind of odd that they just do that one performance and then there's like 10 more days. I mean, they're amazing musicians. They could really come up with a fun kind of show, and it doesn't even have to be a story to it. They could just, play some good music while you're eating.
I know they did at least like one other show, not during dining hours, somewhere on the cruise. I remember seeing it listed. We didn't go to it, but I remember seeing it was at least the bass player from that show. And I think the piano player did like another little bit at some point somewhere on the cruise. I mean, they did have 5 full sea days to fill, so everybody was working really hard to come up with stuff for us to do. So I think they at least got pulled for our cruise. I don't know if that's typical or not.
Okay, I wasn't throwing any shade their way, anything like that. But anyways, any other memorable meals?
I've talked about it before. I'm a vegetarian. Jason is not. Overall, I think Disney does a great job as somebody who eats vegetarian and generally does really well. I think they've improved over the years. The food on the pool deck has taken a top-notch step up from our first cruise ever with Disney Cruise Line. There's always specials. They use the Impossible plant-based meats now, which is great. I love that. Triton's was a huge, kind of surprise for me. We started looking, with the app, you could look at the menus. They had a different, really cool vegetarian option, really creative stuff every day. They did some shiitake mushrooms that they turned into sliced meat and made a charcuterie board tray one day, cool stuff like that. And I really was like, man, I should go to Triton's more. We went one day, and one of the areas I think Disney still has some room to improve on is they have an Impossible Burger listed on Triton's every day. It's on the menu. It's a kind of a standard thing for lunch. Great. But they list all these other awesome burgers, and they don't change up the toppings on the Impossible Burger like they do the meat burger. So what I went in was I said, hey, that burger, the only thing that's meat is the patty you're using. Could you switch in my Impossible patty? And they're like, absolutely, which was great. And I'm glad they could do that. But I had to go asking for it. And I don't know if everybody would think to do that or know that they could at least ask. And I feel like Disney is struggling with what to do with the vegetarian food creatively in the main dining. It's still really good. As a vegetarian, I've been a vegetarian my entire life. I have, seen things sort of change over the years. And it used to be really hard to get vegetarian food. Now it's not. So I'm really chill about what's offered to me. But on a 10-night cruise, Disney offered me a lot of pasta and a lot of rice at the main dinner. And that's fine for 3 or 4 nights. But on a 10-night cruise, I really didn't want to eat pasta for 10 nights. I know they can do other stuff because they're doing it in other parts of the ship. I was never offered an Impossible meat choice, which they have on the ship, used in dinner. Cut up some of those sausages, make a jambalaya. Come on, guys, help me out a little bit. Because it made, by the end of the cruise, I was less excited about dinner. And not because of the staff or the service or anything like that. That was all top notch. But I was a little less excited about dinner by the end of the cruise than I was other meals because I felt like I knew I either had a pasta or a rice dish coming most of the time.
In this case, well, I'm very sorry. First off, that that was disappointing because it's a long cruise and it shouldn't be. For listeners and for yourself for longer cruises, what I would advise you to do is actually utilize the special diet options that you can get through the cruise. So you can pre-order food the day before, and you can actually ask, and this is what people with allergies do, and you don't have an allergy, but you have a specific need, right? You want certain things. You can pre-order with your head server, and they should be telling you this, and they should be noticing that you're vegetarian and you're ordering the same things, and that your choice is one thing. And they could say, well, hey, if you wanted something different, we can get it, because they can very easily get you that Impossible Burger with any toppings you want on future nights. Anything you're seeing around the ship, they can get you. And actually, there's a lot of things if you see something on the menu and with the app, you can kind of look at the menu in advance. You can order that from your server often. And if your server is not comfortable being able to take a certain order, then you can bring in the head server, or they'll decide who's going to take the order. But they can actually make you something more specific. Now, it's still you coming up with the idea, or you looking at something and saying, hey, is there a way you can make this vegetarian for me? These flavors, they all sound amazing. I would like that. You would have to still be a little proactive, but at least it's a choice for going forward for some of these longer cruises.
It is, and I knew that was an option, but for me, like I said, it's no real complaints. It was just something I kind of noticed by the end of the 10 days. I still found plenty to eat. There was great food on the menu. Usually the appetizers weren't pasta based, so I would fill up on those some days, and that worked fine. I just kind of noticed that I felt like it was the one meal area they were sort of not being really creative. And I get it. They've got to cook for tons and tons of people in a really quick area. It's just one of those things. If you're on a long cruise and you're a vegetarian, maybe think about how you want to approach that if you really don't want pasta and rice dishes every day.
I totally understand that. And good advice, Christy, for everybody that's going on a longer cruise like this. Well, let's get you to the islands. This was your cruise, ended up stopping in Honolulu. Then you went to Kauai for 2 days, Maui, back to Honolulu where you disembarked. Was that the original schedule?
It wasn't. Originally, we were supposed to do an overnight in Honolulu. So we went to all the same islands and we're there all the same, like, days, basically, like amount of days, but we just didn't overnight in Honolulu. They kind of changed the schedule on us a couple of months before the cruise, which happens. Disney Cruise Line changes ports and changes orders to fit either something they need or something their ports of call need. So we just had to roll with it. We were able to change our plans. Some of it was booked through Disney Cruise Line, which changed really easy. Some of it was booked by us personally, and I did have to, call and make some changes. But really, most places that are booking, stuff are pretty flexible if you're not changing the day before. And Disney let us know. I think it was around 2 months before, maybe 3.
Overall, because I know you guys are planners, so looking at what you wanted to do in Hawaii, do you think Disney offered mostly what you wanted to do if people wanted to book through it, or did you need to really venture out with somebody else to do some of the things you did?
We needed to venture out to get exactly what we wanted. Disney offered variations. So one of those would be, we went to Pearl Harbor. We went on our own. Disney offered a Pearl Harbor trip. They offered a 5-hour port adventure where you saw 2 of the sites. We wanted the 8-hour Jason and Laura hit the boots running, no stops, no lunch, go, go, go tour. And we wanted to see everything, and we couldn't do that with Disney. And so we had to go on our own. We went on some really cool other tours that Disney offered, again, a variation of, but not exactly what we wanted. And so we're totally good with booking with Disney if we can. It's great to let them deal with all the transportation hassles and all of the booking hassles. The downside is you're on a bus full of, your new best friends, and you're going in a pod of 100 or 200 or whatever it is. But you have no stress, which is great. And it's not on me to plan the transportation, which is generally the hardest part of getting around somewhere different, is how to get to and from whatever you're doing. The good side about booking on your own is then you can do whatever you want and you can do it how you want. And you're not, especially for these ports, we had long, long days in most of our ports. And so I didn't have to worry about, man, I got to get back to that ship by 3 p.m. So I could this doesn't work out. We got a couple hours wiggle room. So we're just going to go on our own and see how this goes. And obviously in Hawaii, one of the benefits for people who, may not be as comfortable traveling internationally is everybody speaks, or most people anyway, are speaking English. So you're not having as much of a language barrier as going around, maybe somewhere in Europe where not everybody is going to speak English, which can add a level of comfort for a lot of people.
So let's talk about that first day. Yeah, to your point, 8:30 a.m. and then 10 p.m. is when it left Honolulu. Let's talk. You kind of had a history day. Pearl Harbor, definitely throw out to people that if you want to go to Pearl Harbor, you're booking yourself. You're going to probably have to get on several months early to get the slots that you may want. Let's talk about what you did that first day.
Yep. So we booked I called it the full experience Pearl Harbor. We booked the Pearl Harbor Pass, which allowed us into every museum, every site, except the USS Arizona Memorial, which you do have to book separately through the National Park Service. And it's a lotto of refresh, like you're trying to get a Rise of the Resistance boarding group. For us, it wasn't as bad as I've heard people. I think some of the tourists amounts are still kind of ramping up, but we booked the first day we're able to get the time slot we wanted to visit the USS Arizona Memorial, which is a really kind of awesome experience. Jason said he had to remind himself as he was standing on the memorial that this isn't a museum. This isn't like an exhibit. This is where it happened, and it's still there. This is where the ship was sunk during World War II in, Hawaii, and it's still there and you can still see it. I mean, it's visible underneath the memorial as you're standing out there. And just what a moment to realize that you're standing where history happened. This is just something that you cannot do in a museum. You cannot get that feeling. And so for us, when we travel and we try to see sites, that's what we're looking for, is what can we do here in this moment where we can really feel, being present where we're at. And we really got that with Pearl Harbor. We got to go all through the Missouri, which is the big battleship, which was tons of fun. And Jason and I had a ton of fun sort of reminiscing. And even if you're not into battleships, this battleship was decommissioned in 1991, 1992, and they left it. They left it as it was in the 90s. So all the stuff from the 90s is there. The old soda labels on the drink dispensers in the cafeteria. The computer lab and the internet room were hysterical. We were cracking up going through wow, that was the internet in 1992 on these ships. And it was high tech. They were one of the first ships to have internet. And so we had a good time. Even if you're not into military history and some of that, there's other ways to enjoy the sites. Going through the sub is super cool to walk through a sub. But even if you're not really into subs, take it as an obstacle course, because you know what, you're going up and down and through all these little holes, and it's just a fun thing to do. Even if you're not wow, I really want to know all about the Pearl Harbor history, there's a way to approach it even if you're not into history, which we totally are. So for us, it was amazing to see all these places we had read about and heard about and, studied it in person. But there's fun ways to do it, even if you're a family with kids. And the museums were great. The museums had tons of interactive stuff, tons of stuff for kids. We could have spent more time in the museum parts of them, like the building museum parts, if we had had the time. But like I said, we were on the no lunch Lauren tour of Pearl Harbor.
I love that. And probably people today still think Disney's internet service is kind of the same way, still back from the 90s. If you go down into the bowels of the wonder and the magic, but who knows? Now, we found the same thing when we were on the carrier down the Midway down in San Diego too. They've left everything that same way. And it's funny to see the old rotary dial phones and the computers and everything else the way they were back in the 90s. So I love that. Well, let's get over to Kauai, one of the most beautiful islands over there. One of the least visited, I think, compared to most people are always, they think of Maui, they think of, going to Waikiki and Honolulu. You guys had 2 days there. What did you guys do that first day?
Our first day there was probably the thing I became the most excited to do when I started researching what to do in Hawaii. Was we went on a helicopter tour. But Jason and I didn't just go on any helicopter tour. We went on a doors off helicopter tour of the entire island. It was amazing. It was oh my gosh. Honestly, it was great. I am a little bit at a loss for words to talk about how awesome it was to get in this helicopter, be strapped in, and have nothing between you and the outside world. No barriers, which meant you got great pictures, but it also meant you smelled everything you went over. It meant you felt everything. You felt the wind. It meant that when we went past the Jurassic Falls waterfall, you could feel a little bit of mist as the wind blew it through your helicopter. And we got really lucky with weather, and we saw the entire island. They told us after that doesn't happen very often. And we got a full tour of the island, which meant we saw the beach views, we saw the mountain views, we saw where they filmed Jungle Cruise. We saw, some farm areas. We saw the Nepali coast, which is breathtaking in its own right, which is what originally got me to book this tour. I wanted to see the Nepali coast, and you either have to do that by helicopter or by boat. And if you are comfortable going in some small aircraft, this is the way to see the island. If I had done this adventure and that was all I did on this island, I would have been thrilled. But of course, it's us, and that's not all we did on the island at all.
So it was funny because I woke up this morning, I'm going through Facebook, and a good friend of the show, Donna, and her family over in Kauai right now. And she posted this today: Jack Harder doors off helicopter tour of Kauai. Just do it.
Oh my God. I feel like you need to reach out to them and make now a video, because this, I think, except for the people afraid of heights. And, this type of helicopter tour makes us all absolutely want to hurry up and book something so that we can do this tour ourselves. It sounds amazing.
Yeah, so cool. Absolutely. I could not recommend this tour enough. Just knowing what you're doing. We saw some people who went on the tour who were not as prepared for what they were going to be doing. There's no doors. When they say no doors, there's no doors.
I love the idea of the mist coming through from the waterfalls too. So Kauai's kind of known for Kauai's kind of the place where you really want to get out and explore kind of nature in it. What did you guys do the second day?
So the second day, we booked something called the Backcountry Tubing Tour. I described it as a faster lazy river. So basically, back in the day, this was a huge sugar plantation area, and they had irrigation ditches that were hand dug. I mean, like 100 plus years ago kind of thing. Now they're not used to irrigate all the fields, and they've turned them into a fast-paced lazy river. And so you get in these lazy river type tubes. They're a little more sturdy, and you have to wear a helmet, which should tell you this is not your typical lazy river. You're with a guide and a group of people, and you float through these irrigation ditches, which also have these huge long tunnels. And so it's a lot of like rock walls up the sides, and that's why the helmets. And you're just going through at a fast clip. It's, a little bit faster than a lazy river, but not so fast that you're like, whitewater rapid rafting. And kids can go on it. So it's a great thing for families. And we were like 45 minutes from the anywhere. You got to take like this really cool tour vehicle out to it, and it's all on dirt roads and, back in the middle of nowhere. And you get to go through like a really kind of remote area of the island and see all the nature and all the chickens you can ever want to see, plant life and all that stuff. And it was a great way to see something different in Hawaii. When I'm planning, even with Disney, I try to vary what we do. I don't want to see a museum in every port. I don't want to, as much as it was amazing, I don't want to do a helicopter tour in every port. And so I'm always trying to look and see what's different or what I can vary or what's interesting about where we're going. And this popped up, and this isn't something that was offered through Disney. So we had to book it ourselves, which came with some challenges trying to get to and from our tubing tour.
There's like that's the hardest part about some of the Hawaiian Islands is there's one road getting to a lot of places, and they get busy.
For us, it wasn't so much about the road as it was that there are not a lot of transportation options on this small island. They are not heavily used by a lot of tourists. And there were some taxis, and we tried for 2 days to get a pre-booked taxi. They're not interested in booking short trips. They ask you where you're coming from and where you're going before they book. And then they go, oh, no, thanks, we're full. And this happened a lot. And you're like, well, we'll just use a rideshare service. Well, guess what? There aren't many of those, and you cannot guarantee you're going to be able to get one. It was I think this was an area I sort of failed in. I was not prepared for how hard it was going to be to get to this place, not because it was hard to get to, but because we could not find transportation. A little bit of luck and pixie dust got us there. But this is where, booking with Disney sometimes is way less stressful. I would not have had to try to figure out how to get myself there. I also wouldn't have got to float down some irrigation ditches in the middle of Hawaii, but the stress that was involved in getting there was a lot. It was a lot more than I would have preferred on my vacation, to be honest.
That's a good point. The rideshare services, Lyft and Uber, are pretty prevalent on Honolulu. Maui gets a little bit less. And then when you get into Kona and Kauai, even less yet. So it's not like being in New York where you can just grab one of those whenever you want. All right, let's get over to Maui, your next stop, beautiful island of Maui. What did you guys have planned there?
I had a list of things I wanted to do going to Hawaii. Some of them are iconic, like a luau. Some of them were this amazing helicopter tour. And one of those things I just wanted to do was snorkel in Hawaii. And I did it through Disney because they offered exactly what I wanted, and I didn't have to stress and deal with all of the logistics of booking a snorkel. And so we went out and snorkeled the Molokini crater, which was crazy amazing. You take a big boat, it's a Disney port adventure. So you're with a lot of people, you're on a big boat. It's well equipped. It has restrooms and food and water and all the things you need, all your snorkel equipment. So I'm not hauling anything with me. We take our little boat ride out to the crater, and they give you, instructions and all the safety stuff. We were some of the first people in the water. We threw on our gear and jumped in. I stick my face in the water, and it was basically like being in a nature documentary. I mean, I could not have asked for better viewing and more fish, and I was blown away by the experience. The last place we snorkeled was Iceland, and it was freezing cold and there was no fish, and we knew that going in, so it wasn't really a surprise. But here, I knew there'd be fish, but I was not prepared for how many fish and how bright the colors would be and the variety and all the stuff we saw. We saw color changing fish. We were swimming in schools of fish that were just circling around us. We saw puffer fish. We saw all the corals. On the boat ride, we even saw a humpback whale and a dolphin with a baby. I mean, it was just like, I felt like David Attenborough could have been narrating my snorkel experience, and that would have been absolutely appropriate.
That sounds awesome.
What a trip, being able to see whales, dolphins, and then the fish as well in Molokini, and just a great place to go.
Let's talk very briefly about the entertainment, and maybe the entertainment that wasn't to be expected. Like, you had a premiere at sea, which is something so fun and unique to Disney Cruise Line. You had it during your cruise. Did you go to it?
We did. We absolutely did. To be fair, we sort of thought it might be happening. This is not our first time we've been on a ship with a premiere at sea. We know they're not guaranteed. They don't announce it till they know it's actually going to happen. But we knew the release date of Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, and we knew when our cruise was and figured they might overlap. And they did. And it was amazing. We love a premiere at sea. They're so much fun. It's great to be in a theater full of people who love Disney and Marvel or whatever movie you're seeing as much as you do. Obviously, you get some really nice comfy seats, and you get a free movie ticket or included movie ticket. But it's really a cool experience. In this cruise, we were lucky. The last time we did it, we had to go to like an 11 p.m. showing. And this time they offered a ton of showings. And the first one started at like 5:15.
Nice.
And we happened to be back on the ship, and we happened to decide to go to that. And most people weren't back. So we had a very empty theater and a very nice experience and enjoyed the movie. It was a ton of fun. It's just a little extra Disney touch. If you don't want to waste your time on the ship seeing a movie, you can see at home. I totally get it. We don't watch a ton of movies on the ship either. But a premiere at sea just is kind of a nice extra touch. And depending on where you are on your cruise, we've seen movies that the rest of the world didn't get to see for 4 or 5 hours. It's not a huge gap, but it's kind of fun to say, hey, I saw it before you did.
I talked to a crew member once about those premiere at seas. And one of the reasons that they don't release the information about the movie ahead of time is they don't know if they're going to receive it, because Disney might all be one company, but they're different departments that have different, approval processes and things. And so it's just a matter of whether that movie is actually given to them to show before the cruise. So I think that's it's just cool. It's even more special that there were steps that had to be taken and approvals that had to be given, and then you get to see the movie. Like, to me, I love all that back end stuff. As it relates to other entertainment, were buckets and boards on your cruise?
They were not. So we had a really great magician, John Armstrong, who was on. He did a great show. We had a comedian, juggler, daredevil guy. I don't remember his name. He did some good stuff. We had all the typical entertainment. We saw Frozen for the first time because that wasn't on the last time we were on the Disney Wonder. I dragged Jason to Dreams, which he goes, we've seen this before. And I said, yes, but they've re-changed it a little bit. So we're going to see it again. He tolerates the Broadway shows for me. I'd go by myself, but he'll go with me. And we enjoyed some of that stuff. We didn't go to all of the stuff they offered. Again, now that we're fourth time cruisers, we've sort of figured out we don't want to spend every night in a show, and we sort of pick and choose, and we don't feel like we have to see them all, because I've seen the Golden Mickeys. It's a great show. If I have nothing else to do and I feel like seeing it, I would absolutely go and see it again. But if I don't feel like going to a show, I can go sit in that French Quarter lounge and, have a nice drink and relax and have a good time. And that's kind of the bonus of knowing you're going to be cruising Disney again and again and again.
One other thing to touch on before we talk about Alani quick, did you guys cruise along the Nepali coast? That's like a big selling point for a lot of the cruise ships that go over there. I know Norwegian, Pride of America, that's like one of the big things that they sell. Did you guys actually cruise along the Nepali coast when you left Kauai?
If we did, I didn't see it.
Yeah. You know what? Actually, now that I'm looking at it, you wouldn't have, because you guys left. Well, I guess that you left at 4:45. Yeah. So I guess they didn't do that. All right. It's beautiful. You got to see it from the helicopter. So good for you. It's too bad that Disney doesn't cruise along it, because that's the scene that you see when you go to Jurassic Park and everything else. So
I assume
a lot of movies.
Yeah, I assume if they did, they would have announced it or made a big deal about it or said something, and there wasn't anything said. So I assume we didn't do it.
Yeah. Well, you guys finally get off in Honolulu after 10 days on the Disney Wonder, and you don't have to rip the Band-Aid off and go back home like a lot of us do. You guys just stay at Alani. Since this is your first time in the islands, I know it's your first time at Alani. What was your overall thoughts of staying at Alani?
So this was one of the reasons I wanted to go to Hawaii. There was a couple of things that made us kind of look at Hawaii. One was listening to you guys on the DCL podcast always talk about how great Hawaii is. Honestly, that totally got us excited. Steve and I get to talk about stuff when we do the podcast, and I kind of know he's into some of the same stuff Jason and I are, and that made us willing to be like, hey, if they like it, maybe we'll like it. And the other one was listening to Disney community legend Len Testa talk about how amazing Alani was. And so we figured if we were going to Hawaii, we were going to make a stop at Alani no matter what we did. And it did not disappoint. It was as good and I think better than we expected. We had a great time. We were there for the weekend. Us and pretty much everybody who got off of our ship took a beeline straight to Alani. So it was like cruising with all of our cruise friends again for the weekend. And we had a great time. We loved the water slides and the beaches, and it was great to get off the ship and still have a couple more days to relax and chill out, because we had a whole bunch of port days, and now it was kind of like sea days while at Alani.
So you guys got to eat at Monkey Pod across the street. I assume that was a good dinner for you guys.
Yeah, that was really good. The coconut cream pie is outstanding. If you order nothing else, that should be on your yes, please list if they're offering it. It was some of the best I've ever had. We knew about Monkey Pod, honestly, because you guys here at the podcast. You guys are a great resource if you're looking to go to Hawaii. Go back and find all those old Hawaii episodes and check them out, because that was where, honestly, I did a lot of my research for what to do when we were in and around Alani. We also I checked out the spa while we were there. It was one of those things that I had always wanted to do. I wanted to go in those water gardens and do that. You had to book a massage. So, or at least a full service. So I, sacrificed and had an amazing massage while at Alani. And then I think we did one other really cool thing that I haven't heard a lot of people talk about. We booked their private sunset on the beach portrait session with the Alani photographers, which was something that we decided we want to do. As people who travel as a party of two most of the time, we don't get a lot of pictures that aren't us with our arm out taking a selfie. And so we thought it would be a lot of fun to have some, semi-pro pictures taken of us. And if you're in Hawaii, you want those to be beach pictures. And if you're going to do a beach picture, why not do it at Alani at sunset? And the pictures are stunning. Like absolutely stunning. We booked a mini session, which is like 20 minutes, which we knew for us was plenty. How many pictures can they really take of the two of us? We don't have kids to wrangle or get to look right. We loved it. It's a little pricey, not going to lie. It's not the cheapest thing we did on this trip. But if you're a couple or if you're a family and you don't travel with an extra family member you don't want in the pictures and you don't feel like asking a stranger, it can be a really nice thing to get some cool pictures. And Alani does a really good job. They did some pose stuff. They did some candid stuff. One of my favorite pictures, I was like, I don't know why they want to take this. And it turned out great, is they did like a long shot of us walking on the beach. And it's so cute. And it's just this precious picture of the two of us. Whether I share that with people or just, look at it every so often on my phone, it's going to be a memory I absolutely take with me from our couple days at Alani.
The sunsets there, if you get a good sunset, are just stunning.
We got it's all luck, right? We were there, 3 nights, and the night we picked the photos was the best Sunset out of the 3. The other 2 kind of would have been a little less, but we knew that going in. We figured nothing else. We got great beach pictures, but we got these stunning, looks like it's a fake backdrop, and we edited ourselves in pictures. Couldn't recommend it enough as a way to get some great family pictures if it's something that you're already thinking of doing and you're already going to Aulani.
Well, what an amazing trip. 10 days on the Disney Wonder. You get your cooler weather heading over there 5 days to just enjoy and relax and not be scheduled and cruise around the island. So many different experiences there. And then, like I said, you don't have to rip the Band-Aid off and go straight home. You get Aulani and just the beauty that it is there for a couple of days. You guys go home and you skipped Chris's favorite restaurant in the Honolulu airport. Could you explain? Because he's going to be really upset about that.
Well, I really thought about it. I did see it, but I didn't really feel like eating at the Pro Golf restaurant. So we went to, really, really high class place, and I got that Impossible Burger at Burger King. I mean, if you haven't flown out of Honolulu, I already kind of knew this thanks to the podcast, but there are not a lot of dining options, which is fine because it's an airport, except like for us, we were flying out of there at sort of an awkward time, and our flight didn't include a meal because a lot of them don't now. And we wanted to eat before we flew home. And, there weren't a ton of options. Burger King did it, and Burger King was crazy expensive. I know Hawaii has expensive food prices plus airport prices, but oh man, I was like, wow, really? For a Whopper? All right then. But it worked. It did the trick. But we did sneak down and, enjoy at least that hidden gardens down on the first floor, which kind of made up for the lack of food because I waited for my flight in a tropical garden. So, if I got to trade that and eat a Burger King burger, it's fine.
Yeah, those gardens are really nice. I'm going to venture to say that you probably had a better burger at Burger King than you were going to get at the PGA Lounge. But
really quick before we leave, you did have some significant time changes. Well, maybe not significant, but several time changes on this trip. How did that work on the cruise? How'd you guys feel? How did your bodies adjust? Because it's not like, flying to Aulani where you're just instantly at 4 hours different or 5 hours different. Like you have to slowly get there. So how'd you guys deal with that?
So we're no stranger to time changes when we travel. We've had some pretty significant time changes on that eastbound and westbound transatlantics. So we were prepared. This was only 3. We did a 6-hour time change on one of those cruises. We were good to go with 3, but we had the bonus of we were gaining an hour. And so they did those time changes all during our sea days. So you went to bed and you gained an extra hour. It really wasn't that noticeable to me. It was pretty easy. Maybe if I was losing the hour, I would have felt it more. The one thing that actually surprised me, because we did our first one, I don't know if it was the first night or the second night. It was really early on in the cruise. I think it might have been the first night even. There's no clocks in the staterooms anymore. There's no clocks, which is fine. Everybody's carrying a cell phone these days anyway, but that means they didn't put that little reminder on the clock to tell you. And I was like, wait. I know we got time changes. It's just in the app. If you don't look in your app and you don't notice, you're going to be kind of off on that time change because there's no physical reminder because there's no navigator and there's no little cardboard thing in front of your clock anymore. And I was like, that might be a mistake, Disney Cruise Line, because not everybody's looking at the app every day, all day. And those time changes can be important, especially if you've got like a Apollo reservation the next day. All of ours were done during sea days, so you weren't missing a port. But if you had something scheduled or you were, trying to run to get that character picture where they have all of the characters out at once that they do on those big sailings and you missed that, I'd be really angry at myself for not knowing. But it wasn't as intuitive as you would think, because if you didn't open the app once they put the notification up later in the day, you didn't know it was a time change day.
Yeah, that's really important to note. Something that if I have a cruise like this going forward, I would definitely want to give feedback on that. Look, you guys can talk about saving the environment and all of these things, but sometimes paper is needed still. And you got to let us know when the time is actually changing. But you mentioned that character photo opportunity. Did they have that on this cruise?
They had it twice, once in regular clothes and once in Hawaii clothes.
Oh my God, I would have died. So did they call it like, it was Mickey and Friends or something like that in the...
They called it a whole lot of nothing because in the app, everything just says character photo.
Even for the big one?
Even for the big
Disney.
one, I was super frustrated. So to be fair, I kind of figured they might do it. We've been on these long cruises. They usually toss these in. I knew I could have probably gone and asked the staff when they were doing it. I'm assuming that's what most people did. This cruise, we were really into just relaxing and going with the flow. And we stumbled on it both days. We just happened to be walking through the lobby and we didn't take it the first day. We've done quite a few of these, but when I saw them all in their Hawaii stuff, I pulled Jason and I was like, dude, get in line. We are taking this picture. It's probably one of our favorite pictures we've ever taken. And we've done these big ones before, the Hawaii ones. And we did this really, just fun pose. And, again, after a couple of cruises of doing these, I wasn't so stressed that this is the one and only time I would ever get it. So we just had a good time at it and ended up with the greatest picture. It'll probably be blown up and slapped on a wall somewhere in our house sooner than later.
That's a little disappointing to know about that. I mean, I hope that that's something that they're going to change as they kind of move forward, as far as letting you know, especially like something big like that with the characters. If it's just like the random character, I mean, I guess I can give them a pass on that, but the big stuff should be no. And we had the same problem when we went to Cozumel. We weren't sure exactly what time it was because, to your point, there are no clocks in the room and there's no clocks anyplace else. And they're sending you like notifications all the time on the app for other things. I mean, I think that they send the COVID stuff a couple of times. Why not just send a couple of notifications? Hey, by the way, there's a time change tomorrow. Hey, by the way, there's a time change tomorrow.
Yeah, that would be so easy.
Yeah, that would be an easy thing that they could do to fix. So, well, before we get out of here. Sorry.
Oh, no, I was going to say, I think they told us at dinner every night when we had a time change. But again, if you're not at dinner, you missed that notification. It was... Yeah. They're doing what they can and the staff is doing what they can under the constraints they're in. But it was definitely, I could see how it would be very easy to miss that we were doing a time change. And honestly, the fact that there was no clocks came as a surprise. I don't know if I didn't see this notification, but I was like, wait, wait, there's no clocks. Like, really? There's no clocks? Like, oh, okay.
Well, I feel like on one ship I was just on, maybe it was the Magic, but I definitely feel like, or the Dream, that we did have a clock in our stateroom that we moved because we never keep it in there because I don't want the light with the time. And it takes up that, the nightstand's so small and it takes up that large amount of space. But frankly, still need to know if the time is changing, Disney. Need to know, people. Okay.
Well, I think we killed that.
That's all I got to say about that.
Yeah, I think we all agree on that. Well, Lauren, just another magical vacation for you and Jason. I love every time when you come back and tell us about what you're doing. I'm not going to ask you what you're doing next because I know you're not going to tell me. So we I always look forward to that. It's like Christmas. I get an email from Lauren as to guess what, we're back and guess what we did.
Well, as you know, we never tell anyone what we're doing next, but I can tell you that we have to pull out the extra suitcases for this one.
Ooh, I wonder. Does that mean you're bringing all your pirate stuff to go on the Wish, or does that mean you're going someplace farther away where you need more things? I don't know. and she shrugs her shoulders. Well, Lauren, any final thoughts before we get out of here? Any things that we didn't talk about that you wanted to mention about this trip?
Definitely while you're in Hawaii, make sure if you like coffee or shave ice, you find some great places to stop and go. It was one of the highlights of things we did in every port. Jason's a huge coffee man, and we came home with a ton of coffee. He sampled a ton of coffee. I'm a huge ice cream person. If it's a cold frozen dessert, I'm going for it. So of course I checked out a ton of shave ice. And it's those little things on vacation. Whatever you're into, try to find that while you're traveling somewhere different and enjoy it. It's some of our favorite memories are running around, sampling ice cream in Iceland and shave ice in Hawaii. It's little stuff. Most people wouldn't care at all. But for us, it's what really makes the trip special and personal. And I think that's something that people forget to focus on is what you like outside of vacation. Make sure you do it on vacation.
I love that. Christy, any final thoughts before we get out of here tonight?
No,
this morning.
Tonight. Oh boy, it's going to be a week, Steve. This was great. When I record some of these, then it makes me go, how do I get on one of these cruises in the future? So it just makes me have some FOMO, and we appreciate you taking the time and giving us all this great information.
Thanks. I love being on the show. It's honestly one of my favorite parts of my post-vacation routine now. I wouldn't know what to do without coming on to talk with Steve and Christy and Chris about all the fun stuff. And I hope, it inspires some people. I listen to these podcasts. You guys are a huge part of the reason we went to Hawaii. I am not making that up. That is really, really true. Was listening to all the shows where you guys talk about how great it was. We went, maybe we'll like it. And so I hope that by, coming on and chatting about the crazy stuff we do on our trips, that it inspires somebody else to maybe check out a destination they weren't thinking of, because you never know what's going to really hit for you. And this was a good one for us. We loved it. We're scheming about how to get back to Aulani.
Well, I'm sure I'll see you back there soon. Well, I'm going to just leave it at that. Well said. Yeah. So many good points there, Lauren. I want to wish you and Jason all the best as we move into the summer. And like I said, whether it's Aulani or whether you're heading back on a cruise, I look forward to that email that I get from you here soon, and love to have you back on.
Great. Thank you so much, guys.
Well, that's going to wrap up our show today. Once again, I really want to thank Lauren for coming on and sharing her and Jason's experience as they sailed on the beautiful Disney Wonder across the Pacific Ocean to the islands of Hawaii, and specifically Oahu, where they disembarked and spent some time in Aulani as well. Always fun to catch up with Lauren and catch up with good friends of the show. Love having them back on, and I can't wait to find out where their travels take them next. We want to give a huge shout out to everybody who's taken the time to go over to iTunes and leave us a review lately. We've had several come in lately, and we sure do appreciate it. That helps us get the word out in the Disney podcasting, the cruising podcasting, and just the Disney community in general. We sure appreciate each and every one of you who've taken time to do that. If you haven't done that yet, we sure would appreciate it if you would do that for us. And we'd like to give a huge shout out to our Patreon supporters. Each and every week, they bring this show to you ad-free. You can find out more about our Patreon program by going to patreon.com/DCL podcast and find out all the information there. Well, with summer fast approaching, if you were heading out on a Disney cruise, heading down to the parks, getting ready for an Adventures by Disney, or just contemplating those virtual 5K runs with Run Disney, on behalf of myself, Steve, Christy, and Chris, all of us here at the DCL podcast, we want to wish you to be well, enjoy time with family and friends, and we'll see you next time on the DCL podcast.
The DCL podcast is not affiliated with the Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney Company, Adventures by Disney, or Run Disney. All of the opinions expressed on our shows are those of the hosts and the guests who appear on the show. If you have any questions about any of these products, please contact the Walt Disney Company.